Hello and welcome, or if you've been here before, welcome back. We call this little series of poems, Poems Not Pills, because we read the sad news that NHS doctors prescribe 80 million prescriptions a year for depression, and we think that poems can help in a small way. Now, the other note that I have to make at the beginning is I have no control whatsoever over the advertisements. So if you see an inappropriate ad popping up, it can't blame me. Sorry about that. Now, let's get on with the poems. This is something very silly to start with to get us going, okay? A hippo has skin that is blubbery, filled to bursting with rubbery. When its mouth opens wide, it could fit you inside. Thank goodness it only eats shrubbery. Okay, now here's another silly one, but this one is very famous because of its ability to use poem poetry. It's called The Owl and the Pussycat. That's by Edward Lear. The owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea-green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money and wrapped it up in a £5 note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar. Oh, lovely pussy, oh pussy, my love, what a beautiful pussy you are, what a beautiful pussy you are. Pussy said to the owl, you elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be married, too long we have tarried, but what shall we do for a ring? They sailed away for a year and a day, to the land where the bong trees grow. And there in a wood a piggy-wig stood with a ring at the end of his nose. His nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring? Said the piggy, I will. And so they took it away and were married next day by the turkey that lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon, and hand in hand on the edge of the sand they danced by the light of the moon, the light of the moon, the moon, the moon. They danced by the light of the moon. Now that's pretty soppy. Now something a lot more serious by John Keats. On first looking into Chapman's Homer, I think what we've got to understand is that early part of the 19th century, because everyone was obsessed with classical things. You just have to look around at buildings. In Oxford, we've got the Ashmolean. It's a copy of a Greek or Roman temple. So the fact that Keats spent his whole life studying Greek and Latin is not that surprising. And Chapman's Homer was a particular translation. Much have I travelled in the realms of gold, and many goodly states and kingdoms seen. Round many western islands have I been, which bards in fealty to Apollo hold. Oft of wide expense have I been told that deep-browed Homer ruled as his domain. Yet did I never breathe it pure, serene, till I heard Chapman speak out loud and bold. Then I felt it like some watcher of the skies when a new planet swims into his ken, or like stout Cortez, when with eagle eyes he stared at the Pacific, and all his men looked at each other with a wild surmise, silent upon a peak in Darien. So, the peak in Darien thing is something that was common. Again, it comes from classical learning, and it's something which surprises people. Anyway, and of course Cortez was the first person to see the Pacific, or first European to see the Pacific, and they were staggered because they didn't even know America was there at all. Now this next one is written by actually a politician, but it's beautiful, but it's sad, and it's called Spring by Ian MacLeod. I thought if you left me, time must end, and all the suns in the world grow chill. I thought the flowers must fade, and streams run dry, and all the earth's great beating heart stand still. But life cares nothing for a broken dream, a love we've wrecked upon an empty pride. Here where the world is bursting into spring, everything lives, only my heart has died. It's rather sad, really. Now this is really a bit like mindfulness. This one is called Adlestrop by Edward Thomas. Again, a very, very famous poem. Yes, I remember Adlestrop, the name, because one afternoon of heat the express train drew up there unwontedly. It was late June, the steam hissed, someone cleared his throat. No one left and no one came. On the bare platform was what I saw, was Adlestrop, only the name. And willows and willow herb and grass and meadow sweet and haycocks dry, no whit less still and lonely fair than the high cloudlets in the sky. And for that minute a blackbird sang close by, and round him mistier, further and further, all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire. Now this is a bit challenging. This is a fellow called Brian Patton, and again he is very much a sort of mindfulness person. And the thread here that you'll pick up, the thread here is, depression. If you could do mindfulness, it does help a bit. You ask for a poem. I offer you a blade of grass. You say it is not good enough. You ask for a poem. I say this blade of grass will do. It has dressed itself in frost. It is more immediate than any image of my making. You say, it is not a poem. It is a blade of grass. And grass is grass. It's not quite good enough. I offer you a blade of grass. You're indignant. You say it's too easy to offer grass. It's absurd. Anyone can offer a blade of grass. You ask for a poem, and so I write you a tragedy about how a blade of grass becomes more and more difficult to offer, and about how, as you grow older, a blade of grass becomes more difficult to accept. Now, there's another Brian Patton called Inessential Things. What do cats remember of days? They remember the ways in from the cold, the warmest spot, the place for food. They remember the places of pain, their enemies, the irritation of birds, the warm fumes of the soil, the usefulness of dust. They remember the creak of a bed, the sound of their owner's footsteps, the taste of fish, the loveliness of cream. Cats remember what is essential of days, letting all other memories go as of no worth. They sleep sounder than we, whose hearts break, remembering so many inessential things. So there you are, comparing us to cats. It's undoubtedly true that cats on the whole seem to be happier than us. Now this one's a bit tum-to-tum, but it is fun. It's called Weathers, and it's by Hardy. This is the weather the cuckoo likes, and so do I. When showers retumble the chestnut spikes, and nestlings fly, and the little brown nightingale builds his best, and they sit outside at the traveller's rest, and maids come forth sprig muslin dressed, and citizens dream of the south and west, and so do I. This is the weather the shepherd shuns, and so do I. When beaches drip in browns and duns, and thresh and cly, and hill tides throb throw on throw, and meadow rivulets overflow, and drops on gates hang in a row, and rooks in families homeward go, and so do I. Another one, this is a bit tum-to-tum, it's called The Months, and it's by Sarah Coleridge, her brother you might have known about, 1802 to 1852, so lady poets were coming into their own. Okay. January brings the snow, makes our feet and fingers glow. February brings the rain, thaws the rose-frozen lake again. March brings breezes loud and shrill, stirs the dancing daffodil. April brings the primrose sweet, scatters daisies at our feet. May brings flocks of pretty lambs, skipping by their fleecy dams. June brings tulips, lilies, roses, fills the children's hands with posies. Hot July brings cooling showers, apricots and jelly flowers. August brings the sheaves of corn, then the harvest home is born. Warm September brings the fruit, sportsmen now begin to shoot. Fresh October brings the pheasants, then to gather nuts is pleasant. Dull November brings the blast, then the leaves are whirling fast. Chill December brings the sleet, blazing fire and Christmas treat. Now here's another poem by another very famous man, William Morris. That's not William Morris the car maker, it's William Morris the poet. It's called The Tapestry of Trees. He's talking about trees and their qualities. Oak, I am the roof tree and the keel. I bridge the seas for woe and weal. Fir, high over the lordly oak I stand, and drive him on from land to land. Ash, I heft my brother's iron bane, I shaft the spear and build the wain. Yew, dark down the windy dale, I grow, the father of the fateful bow. Poplar, the war shaft and the milking bowl I make, and keen the hay wain hoe. Olive, the king I bless, the lamps we trim, in my warm waves do fishes swim. Apple tree, I bowed my head to Adam's will, the cups of toiling men I fill. Vine, I draw the blood from out of the earth, I store the sun for winter mirth. Orange tree, amidst the greenness of my night, my odorous lamps hang round and bright. Fig tree, I who am little among the trees, in honey making make the bees. Mulberry tree, love's lack hath dyed my berries red, for love's attire my leaves are shed. Pear tree, high over the mead flowers' hidden feet, I bear aloft my burden sweet. Bay, look upon my leafy boughs, the crown of living song and dead renown. That's all he has to say about all. Okay. What one's got to remember were poems that were written more than 100 years ago. People walked everywhere. I mean, the bicycle's only about 100 years old, just over. And people everywhere. If you walk everywhere, and you have far fewer people and far fewer houses, they're aware of all the stuff that's going around them. And of course, they're also aware that every tree has its uses. And you couldn't just bring up and get it on the internet, get Amazon to bring you something made in China the next day. You had to go and chop down a tree if you wanted to make something. So life was really difficult in one way, but rewarding perhaps in another. Now this is by Oscar Wilde. The sea is flecked with bars of grey. The dull dead wind is out of tune, and like a withered leaf the moon is blown across the stormy bay. Edged clear upon the pallid sands the black boat lies. A sailor boy clambers aboard in careless joy, and laughing face and gleaming hand, and overheard the curlews cry, where through the dusky upland grass the young brown-throated reapers pass, like silhouettes against the sky. So what's going on there? Well, he's saying it's a dull grey day, but nevertheless happy people can nevertheless make it happy, whether they're going to work or not. Indeed, because they're going to work. Now, John Keats, poor old Keats, had a very sad life. He died himself at age 25 of consumption in Rome. We think he caught his consumption from tending his brother, who died a few years before. And Keats's dad fell off his horse and broke his head and died. So poor old Keats, who died at 25, had a pretty rotten life. But nevertheless, he was pretty positive and pretty aware of what's going on. 4 seasons fill the measure of the year. There are 4 seasons in the mind of man. He has his lusty spring when fancy clear takes in all beauty with an easy span. He has his summer when luxuriously spring's honeyed cud of youthful thought he loves to ruminate, and by such dreaming high is nearest unto heaven. Quiet coves his soul has in its autumn, when his wings he furleth close, contented so to look on mists in idleness. to let fair things pass by unheeded as a threshold book. He has his winter too, of pale misfeature, or else he would forego his mortal nature. I want to touch upon something now which is not poetry, but there's a newish form of, I'm going to call it therapy, a newish form of therapy called ACT. And ACT goes on from cognitive behavioural therapy, in which people talk to each other and try to replace bad thoughts with good thoughts. ACT is slightly different in that what it says is, look, you've got the bad thoughts, can't think about them, they're always there, like poor old Keats. His dad died when he was 8, his brother died when he was 20, and he was dying himself. But nevertheless, he could look at the world and write beautiful poems. So ACT therapy is really quite worth having a look at. Lake by John Foster. The lake on a calm day, the lake imagines it's a mirror and smiles back at people who pass by smiling. On a breezy day, the lake hunches its shoulders and sends ripples scudding across its surface. On a winter's day, the lake hides itself under a frozen blanket and refuses to budge until it is warm enough to come out again. So that's all for the poems for this edition. But if you've seen any of the earlier ones, you know that there's a few words about my own experiences during World War II. And we talked about being evacuated and bombs and all that sort of nonsense. But this is 1945. The war has come to an end. Soon the years passed and 1945 came. We heard the war was over from a postman on a horse waving and yelling. The Italian 4 held hands and danced. 3 of the farm men took off their caps, stood together and prayed. I'd never seen that before. There was a street party. I saw my first orange, but nothing much had changed. The Italians, now free, went off to London. I missed them. They were young and full of fun. The barn seemed very empty. Well, that's it, folks, for this one. There were previous ones, if you care to look, and there will be following ones, if you can be bothered to look. Thank you for viewing. Bye-bye.